And we've started.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. We are starting the Finance Committee meeting. I'm going to share my screen for the presentation. I did circulate all of the documents that we'll be talking about today, so you should have those in your email. Give me, uh, whoever the host is needs to let me share my screen.
Hey, 1 second. All right, you should be able to.
Okay, can everybody see this?
Yep, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to start just to go over the agenda today. The first two items are we've been talking a lot at Property Committee, and Dr. Yannicona has been giving updates. And if you've been on campus, you've seen all the work that's being done on the capital end and facilities end. So we're going to talk about some of the capital projects that are kind of wrapping up in the middle of and starting that are outside of the middle school renovation and addition project, which is the big one. Then we're going to have a very, very quick conversation because yes, it is that time. It is time to talk about the 24-25 budget, even though it is October. So we're going to just go through a couple of things very high level and just talk about upcoming meetings and action steps that the board will have to take during this process. And the fourth item I'm actually going to table. We are waiting on additional documentation. I'll just talk about and highlight. We're going to table this till next meeting and we'll bring it back in front of the committee so that we can take it to the full board for approval. So the first item, I just wanted to go through and remind you, last May, and it was actually in last February, you'll remember that Jamie Doyle came and gave a presentation about doing a $10 million borrowing. We were talking about at the time because we weren't sure. We were still putting together the middle school project, what that was going to look like and what the vision was for that. But in the meantime, there were other capital items that were quite extensive that needed to be done that required us to go out to bond so that we could pay for them. So this is just a reminder that phase one of our borrowing plan, it was right under $10 million. This happened last May. We settled last May. Included in that, the expectation was, as you recall, a roof at the high school is about 100,000 square feet. It is running out of warranty, so we are in the process of doing that project in thirds. So this past summer, we did 33,000 square feet. We took care of the areas that were the worst on the roof that were causing leaks into the building. So that project is pretty much 98% complete. They are putting the flashing on and they're finishing that, to my understanding, at the high school. But that work, the majority of that is completed. So that was phase one of the high school roof replacement. That came in with everything in the bid, about $1.9 million. You'll see actual year to date where we are. We're just finalizing things. We have punch list. We haven't finished paying out the contractor. We look like we're on budget with that project. So that project was very successful. The second project that is ongoing, and as I was leaving yesterday, I was seeing them put up the second goalpost. So that was exciting to see. Is the middle school track and field renovation. And we're calling this phase one. If you recall, we did a presentation at a property committee meeting last year, and we talked about different things that were going to happen at the middle school. Not only the rubberizing of the track, doing some work on the football field, the field hockey, doing some stuff for the track team. So when we went out to bid, we were just looking at doing the football field, I believe the field hockey field, and rubberizing the track. Schloss, or I believe that's the name of the contractor, they work very, very quickly. The project was not anticipated to be done in November until November. It's almost like we're up against the gun because they are putting the goalposts and everything in, but that project was not set to be done until November. So they worked really, really quickly this summer. They were ahead of schedule. We were able to add the goalpost move the long jump pit. If you recall, we did a change order for that. So we did some additional work there that we had not anticipated. I believe we're having a football game this evening on the field. And like I said, I saw the goalpost being put up, and we did go from the H goalpost to the Y. So very exciting. It looks really, really good. They did a good job there. So that was the second piece of using that phase one of the bond issuance. The third project that we are in the preliminary stages of, and I believe that we are looking to go out to bid soon, is the Erdenheim ramp. That is making it ADA so that we have the ability through a ramp to go from the cafeteria down to the lower house at Erdenheim. So that project is just kicking off. So we're really just doing like Dewey's invoices. We haven't started construction. We haven't gotten bid documents in for that. If you look at this number was a little bit lower the first time that we presented that. We went out, Mr. Thorne, Dr. Yannicone, Dewey, and one of Dewey's engineers, I believe, went out. We are adding, because of the depth back there and the grade, we had to smooth it out a little bit and add a little bit more square footage on the length of the ramp. So that elevated the cost a little bit. We're still able to absorb that in the bonding and the funding that we have. The next two pieces are the second the second and third pieces of the high school roof replacement. So once we're done with that, which the phase two will commence in summer of 2024. Anticipate that phase three will be summer of 2025. So in the next 2 summers, we will have the whole roof at the high school replaced and under warranty for the next 20 years. So we won't have to talk about the roof again for the next 20 years at the high school. This will be the last building that we have the roofs done. All of our roofs will be under warranty. As you recall, we did the middle school and the bus garage last year. So this is the last school that we need to make sure that we shore this up. We have not gone out to bid yet on the phase two for the high school partial roof replacement. We're in the process of doing that, but Dewey gave us a good estimate of the 1.8. Estimate number 3 for phase 3. I'm just kind of, going down the middle of that, doing it about 1.9. That might go up, that might go down, depending. That's a 2-year out. The final piece of this was any funding that was left over. We were looking to start the pre-design and the design of the middle school addition and renovations project. So this would have been bringing the construction manager on, starting the architect, and starting that piece. We're going to talk in a little bit about how we are going to fund the bulk of this project and where we're looking at budget parameters for anything. Are there any questions about this slide or any of the projects that are happening?
I don't have any.
No, thank you.
Okay.
I did have a question about what variance meant, but you explained it. So
Okay.
Thank you.
I do have a question.
Sure.
I struggle to find the mute button. So assuming the remaining parts of the project come in as budgeted, which is the assumption that you have in this chart, we're coming in significantly below the funds available from the bond issuance. What happens to those funds?
We will.
And
Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your question.
The and part was, and like, what is in place for your ability as administration to direct those funds, or is that like a separate thing that we're going to need to go through in finance committee?
No, so that's a great question. So when we do the bond issuance, part of the due diligence and what the team does, that's Jamie Doyle, that's our bond legal counsel. That's that team together. We put together what's called an official statement. In the official statement, that's what gets posted. That's where it talks about the purpose. It talks about our tax millage. It gets the big, thick book that comes with a bond issuance. In the bond issuance, you have to identify the purpose of what you're using the funds for. And then there's a test that you have to do with those projects to make sure that within certain amount of time that you're going to use a certain percentage of the money. So because we've done the roof replacement, the track, we're starting Erdenheim ramp, we've already met the requirements of those tests. But we've also put in there, and you kind of leave it open a little bit. So I did identify that we were doing the high school roof, the Erdenheim ramp project, that we were doing renovations at the middle school field, and then we were doing renovations and additions at the middle school. That leaves it wide open and gives us the flexibility that if a project comes under, it can be shifted to be identified for those other projects. So with each bond issuance, we will make sure that we have the flexibility that if we come under anything, that we have the ability to identify those funds and have those funds used for another project. We always have projects in the district that we can utilize bonds funds for. So we do have that flexibility, and that will happen with each of the $10 million bond issuances. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions on this? Okay, we're going to go to the next slide. On this slide, I just wanted to go over for the 23-24 district goals, district goal number 5, talking about financial and facility improvements, because it specifically talks about the middle school renovations and additions project, and also talks about reviewing the bus depot. As you recall, that was a goal last year, and we've moved forward with that as far as moving forward with our goals and our plans and our action steps for those projects. So we also want to highlight that our plans in this goal, we are exploring sustainability in the systems. So that is a conversation that is happening as we go through all these projects and working with Dewey and the architects. So just to give you an idea, right now we are in pre-design meetings with the design team. The design team is limited right now to Mr. Thorne, Dr. Yannicone, myself, Dr. Lutz, Dr. Dennis, the middle school administration team, and Mr. Lutz for technology. There will be isolated as we move forward. We just brought the architect on. So we had a design team meeting this week, actually, with the first time that the architect was there. So as the architect starts to get involved, we will have pockets of meetings with different groups of people as it requires, and not have everybody at the table at once. So again, that's been happening. During property committee, we will have design team updates for the property committee so they can see how this project is tracking. And then obviously during the finance committee meetings, we will continue to discuss financing and how we are moving along and analyzing how we're benchmarking against the budgets that are being set. So I wanted to talk about the financial borrowing plan because we've talked about this middle school renovation project. So how are we paying for it? So we presented, again, last February, a multi-year financing plan. We talk about doing $10 million at a time because they're called bank qualified borrowings, which gives us a better interest rate. Also, we want to make sure that we're able to meet the benchmarks of the 3 tests that are put in place. We don't want to borrow $30 million all at once and then have that money sitting, because we're going to have measurable and reasonableness in using those funds within a certain period of time. So we're going to move through this process doing $10 million borrowings at a time. Right now, based upon the $10 million borrowing, it increases our annual debt service approximately $577,000 per $10 million. So that means in our general fund during budget time, new money that is identified in the budget will be the 577 as we do these financings or borrowings. Currently, our annual debt service is about $8 million per year. That includes principal and interest, and it's about 12% of our overall budget. So I also provided this because it's little and it's a lot of information, but this should be very familiar to you. This is what Jamie Doyle presents when she presents the finance plan. So you'll see in the tan colored 2023 column, that is the money that I just spoke about that we are utilizing for the high school roof, the Erdenheim ramp project, the middle school fields, and then starting on the middle school renovation project. So that has happened. That happened last May. What she has done is she has gone out for the next 3 years, identifying what a $10 million borrowing impact would be on the budget, and kind of timeline in that. We've kept it around the May timing. So that means in February, we'll be hearing from Jamie Doyle. And again, Dr. Yannicona also asked me a good question when we were meeting, and she said, what if the economy and the market it's not good for us? What happens? We are never in a position that we have to go through with a borrowing. If Jamie Doyle and her team presents these numbers because at the time they're doing market trends, they're doing projections, when real time comes to go out to bid, if the numbers do not hold true or they are not favorable for us, we do not have to accept doing the borrowing. And then we can wait until market trends happen. In my career, that has happened one time, and that was right when COVID hit. Outside of that, market trends for bond issuances for school districts are relatively favorable. So if you see this is our plan over the next 3 years, 24, 25, and 26. We plan on going out to borrow $10 million. Those funds will be dedicated for the middle school renovation and addition project. That budget was given to Dewey. Schrader also understands that budget, so we are keeping into that budget as tightly as possible. We have a little bit of wiggle room and decision making to make. Again, as we go through this process, it might come in under 30, and we'll see where we go from there. But right now, this is our understanding of what we're looking to do and the vision set for the changes in the middle school. This is the funding that we have. Are there any questions about this?
Kara, I have a quick question, or possibly not a quick question.
Sure.
I see at the bottom in the notes, you're talking about rates being based on current market conditions. So is it safe to assume that the 2023 is based on the actual rate that we have on that issuance?
That is correct.
Okay. And then the projected for 24, 25, 26, those are using the significantly higher rates that we're seeing now? And are they like consistent across all 3 years, or is there some projected increase, decrease built in?
I believe there's projections built in. Jamie Doyle does the market trends, so they have the projections. If you recall, when she does her presentation, she brings up a graph that is huge and it has all these spikes in it. And she talks about how their models forecast and analyze where the economy is going to be based upon what's happening in the world, how that impacts the market. So I received this probably about, I want to say a month ago. It might have been a little bit more than that. She's planning on coming in January to present, so this might be updated a little bit, and we might see some changes. But PFM, and they've been pretty spot on for the projections that they've given. If anything, we've come under where they anticipate because the interest rates have been better and the market's been good. Again, she will not put us in a position to go out to market if the market's bad and not favorable for us. They have the ability to have the pulse on that.
All right, excellent. And so that brings me to my next question, and I apologize if this is a silly question, but let's say we get a good issuance in 24. We're moving forward full steam with everything. We're breaking ground. We're moving the project forward, and then something goes awry for the last two borrowings. Like what happens then?
That's a good question. I do not anticipate with the bond market that anything will go awry to the point that it'll be the timing of when it happens, not necessarily that it won't happen. Right now she has a set in May. So if she sees coming off in January that the market's favorable for us to do the borrowing in January and we can meet the reasonable tests, then she will make that recommendation that the market is not volatile, that it's this. Or we get to May and she's like, we need to wait a couple months because there's things happening and it's impacting the market. And we anticipate that it'll smooth out in the next couple of months. We want to wait because we believe there will be favorable conditions. I don't believe for 2 years straight, the bond market will just tank and we won't have the ability to go out and borrow.
Okay. All right. And then I'm sorry, one of the things you said there just brought up another question I have. So this $10 million, this limit that we have to get the favorable interest rates and call features. Like if we had to move it up to January, does that create an issue because it's within the same 12-month period, or is there some latitude with these issuances that allow you to stay under that 10 million limit?
I believe there will be latitude. What she'll do is she'll readjust based upon. So if you see, we did in May 4th of 2023. So January, it'll be a new year. So it'll be January 2024. So we'll
Okay.
be within a new year. If she has to adjust, then what she'll do is she'll adjust the other issuances moving out, not going
Great.
backwards.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Green, before you go on to the next slide, and I appreciate all of Mr. DeFranco's questions, in the event, I know we don't have anyone from the community currently in the room or watching, but later somebody may watch the video. Could you just scroll down to the second half of that page? Because for the viewer, if you look to your far right, yeah, just to make sure, because you were referencing and Mr. DeFranco was referencing some items that weren't visible to the general public. And so if somebody's watching the video, they can see that this actually projects out 22 years, almost a little bit over 21 years now at this point, as we're approaching the end of 2023. And then also, if you can scroll back up, I wanted to make sure, I believe you mentioned this, but just want to clarify for the board members. You can see on the far right, column 14, the millage and the estimated millage impact. As later in the year, we'll be discussing potential use of tax funds to partially fund this. And so I want to make sure you're clear on where that impact is on our annual budget in the next 5 years as an estimate. And then lastly, to Mr. DeFranco's most recent question about what happens if the market forces change. Currently, the timeline for the middle school renovation and addition project has us breaking ground in June of 2025, with a completion of the fall of 2020, November of 2027. And so we will have some time, knowing we have a good advance for at least 20 of the 30,000 that the borrowing would have been completed before we break ground. Ms. Green, is there anything else you think?
No, I think that
total
you summed that up perfectly.
Okay, thank you. Does that lead to any other questions for the board? Okay.
Okay. So we're going to move forward and we're going to talk about if there's no more questions about the financing of the capital projects that are in the pipeline currently, then I can move forward with our discussion about the 24-25 budget timeline. Good with that? Okay,
Yeah.
so just wanted to go through, this is a slide that you guys should be familiar with at this point. We like to identify our guiding principles on building the budget and what we're looking to do and how that impacts our education in our community. The budget process, I went through this before. There's been a couple changes this year, doing a couple things differently because our focus is changing a little bit on making sure that we are starting to include long-term financial outlook. So we're looking to build a 5-year financial outlook or financial budget this year so that we can see there's a lot of decisions that are happening. I know in the previous slides, we're talking about doing borrowings over the next 3 years. And how is that going to impact? How are those decisions that we're making now going to impact some of the future things that are happening within our district? So my office creates the revenue budget. We look at a 5-year historical trend, current economic climate, and then I use external data from different sources, such as the state, such as local entities. Myself and Ms. Kerr, we work together to create the personnel budgets, that's salary and benefits. So obviously that's using salary and benefit information that's reflective of our contract language. We are not in negotiation with any of our groups this year, so it's making it a little bit easier to put the budget together because those numbers are known. Ms. Kerr provides updated benefit information. And then we also like to review, Dr. Yannicone's office with OTL likes to review updated enrollment projections to make sure that we're meeting the needs within our buildings. The building budget administrators, this is where there's a little bit of a change this year. they're used to doing a zero-based budget. That methodology was used when I first got here because we wanted to kind of build the budget ground up to make sure that we were capturing everything and that we were stabilized with budgets. One of the things that I try to make sure doesn't happen within departmental budgets and building budgets is for cyclical things that we don't have a spike where if it's a year that we're replacing smart boards, so to speak, that it's not a one-time hit or a bump of $300,000 in a department's budget. We try to like smooth those types of things out by making it cyclical and making sure that we build into the budgets. Another example, a better example would be leases for our student devices and our staff devices. Is we want to make sure that that number is consistent in the budget so that every 3 years we're not coming back and the technology budget's bumping up by $300,000. So this year, we've been able to establish that for the last 2 years. So I feel very confident that the building budgets are stabilized, that we have an idea of needs, of what they need to do their daily operations. So this year it'll be based on an incremental and value-based priority methodology. What that means is they are going to receive an allocation from me. That allocation is based upon me reviewing and analyzing the last 3 years of their spend, because we've been doing zero-based budgets, benchmarking that against what their budget actually was, and then giving them an allocation that we know will meet the needs of their day-to-day operations. And then the value-based priority is the building administrators will then identify things. They have the ability to shift that money around in their budget to identify or to focus on initiatives as they see fit. And then they have to justify anything that is swinging from a 5% increase or decrease. They have a 5-year budget to actual history, prior year budget justification to assist them with this. They will be meeting with myself, with the director of technology, director of facilities, Dr. Yannicone during this process. They have until February to turn in their budget, so they have time. Also this year, we are doing 5-year budgets, so they will be projecting out and having that vision over the next 5 years of things happening in their buildings or initiatives. On the flip side, the department budget administrators will still continue to create zero-based budgets. I believe that departments, with the way education is right now, it's ever changing and they need that flexibility to be able to identify things. I can use an example for students, support services and student services. Those budgets fluctuate based upon things that are happening within education and within our district specifically. So they need to have the ability to not be pigeonholed into an allocation to make sure that they are addressing the ever-changing needs from year to year. They will also be doing a 5-year budget to and providing that to help us build our overall 5-year financial budget. And then I've been talking about this. We want to make sure that we're proactive with decision-making, with things that are happening within the district. So we want to start to do a 5-year outlook. Again, decisions that we're making now can impact us from 5 to 10 years from now. So we want to make sure that we have that information in front of you so that when you're making decisions, you can see how those decisions unfold financially. Is there any questions on the budget process and the changes that we have?
I guess one question,
Sure.
just this change that you're making for the building admin level, is that a proactive change, or is that something that, after doing this for the 2 years with the zero base, is it something where something happened in the budgeting process that you're trying to address, or are you just trying to get ahead of it?
No, it's a proactive change. I think that was always my methodology, was going to be to get the budget stabilized. That's first and foremost, so that we're consistent with it, because we do ask the buildings and their teams to, be future thinkers and to dream and to wish and to want to expand out of the norm. It's our slogan is pursue the impossible. So we want them to have the ability to do that, but it has to be within certain parameters. It just can't be a blank check. So one of the things is I wanted to make sure that the buildings were stabilized. I wanted to kind of do a benchmark against, Enfield, Erdenheim, looking at enrollment of those buildings, seeing where they land. And I've seen the trends. It's actually just given me historical data to see the trends on where their budgets need to land. And then with anything, I tell the budget administrators that, obviously if an emergency arises or an unforeseen incident happens or something happens out of the norm that they weren't expecting, that's my job and Dr. Yannicone's job to make sure that we provide them with the resources that they need. So while they are being kind of pigeonholed into an allocation, I'm of the understanding that if there is a need that rises, that we need to make sure that they have the resources they need. But it's proactive. It's nothing happened. It wasn't like they were asking for this budget and the spend was super low or super high. It just is balancing out the budget process.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, so we are going to go through, this is a snapshot that I show every year. I think it's a good historical trend on Act 1 index versus where the district has been in tax increases. Our MVPI aid ratio has been consistent. It's still at 0.1500, which is very, very strong. As you will see in the current year that we are, the Act 1 index was 4.1. We increased to 3. So we're still doing what we need to do to make sure that we come under that Act 1 index. We work very hard at that. This year, you see the number. It's a big number. 5.3% is the Act 1 index this year. And again, you can see in my little explanation on how they come up with that calculation. So this got published in September. I'm just going to go back a little bit because when we project out, the projections anticipated that the Act 1 index was going to be 4.7. So that number increased. And let me see, for 25-26, the projections originally were 4%. And for 26-27, it was 3.8%. So you can see that the numbers are increasing a little bit. They're trending a little bit higher. Unfortunately, for the projections that you see on this slide, June is the best data that the IFO has given us. And at that time, they were projecting Act 1 to be 5. So the numbers are skewed just a little bit for the projections. They might be a little bit higher when we get final projections from them. But in June of 2023, these are the best projections we have so that you can kind of see a future outlook of where Act 1 is going. And again, we anticipated Act 1 was going to be 4.7 and that changed to 5.3. So this is the highest, as you'll see, over the history of where Act 1 is at this time. So that's the parameters that we have to raise taxes to for the budgeting process without going to exceptions or asking for voter referendum. Any questions about the Act 1 index? Okay, we're going to go on to the budget timeline and kind of previews of the upcoming meetings that we're going to have. So this meeting was a discussion about the budget timeline. We also talked about the financing for capital projects. We are looking to have another meeting November 14th. Here we will have the 2022-2023 audit presentation. Ms. Jenko or Mrs. Kapiski, I'm sorry, I should be saying that, has been working very, very hard on getting all the documents and having everything together for the audit. The auditor has been in. We anticipate that we'll be ready for that November 14th meeting. We will also discuss the 24-25 budget again. We will talk about going and having you approve the opt-out resolution. We will also be discussing the introduction of a senior tax rebate program. So we can get into that a little bit more at the November 14th meeting. But there are some districts in Montgomery County and throughout Pennsylvania. If you're not familiar, the state offers a rebate program for seniors for their taxes. So it's a form that they fill out. There's criteria that has to be met. Some districts have piggybacked off of that based on a percentage to offer that within their local district. So we are looking to introduce that into the discussion for the 24-25 budget season. And then we are also going to have a conversation about the high school scoreboard replacement. So that's a preview of the upcoming November 14th Finance Committee meeting. At the November 21st regular board meeting, we will have some motions. We will be looking to have you approve the accelerated budget opt-out resolution, which means that we are saying that we are not going to raise taxes above the Act 1 index, which is 5.3. Then on February 9th, we have a little bit of a gap there. That's the deadline for everybody to put their submit their budgets to me, so I can put everything together and compile so that and then on February 15th, we will have a finance committee meeting where Jamie Doyle will join us and we will talk about the May 2024 financial plan. We'll also continue to have the 24-25 budget discussion. And then at the March 14th meeting, that'll be the first look at the 24-25 budget. And then from there, we can schedule in meetings as needed if we do feel that we need finance committee meetings. But the April 18th meeting would be the 24-25 proposed final budget discussion. And then the two big action items would be at the May 7th interim meeting. You would approve the 24, and that should say 25. I apologize for that. Proposed final budget. And then at the June 18th meeting, we will approve the final budget. So that is a overview of what's to come over the next couple months, and then a longer view of what's to come over the year for the budget process. Is there any questions about the timeline? Nope. Okay, I am looking to turn this off. Give me a second, please.
It's always amazing. Those dates seem so far away.
They go very quickly.
Tomorrow we're like looking at the final.
There we go. Okay, so there's no action items coming out of this meeting today for the upcoming board meeting. I know it was a lot of information and a lot of numbers, but we've been doing a lot of talking about facility projects. So I just wanted to make sure that I put numbers in front of the finance committee meeting so that questions aren't swirling on, okay, we're doing a lot. How are we paying for this? So hopefully I answered those questions. And if you do have any, I'm more than happy to answer. No? Dr. Yannicone, do you have anything?
No, I appreciate the attendance and the attention of the board. And as Kara said, we don't have anything coming to Tuesday evening's meeting. However, traditionally we do have a summary of the meeting. So I'm not sure if Dr. Taratuski or Mr. DeFranco, you're the two committee members present today. Would either of you be feeling comfortable to provide that summary on Tuesday night?
I'll defer to Neil. He always does a great job, but I'm happy to do it.
I don't know that I would say it. I always do a great job, but I never have an issue putting it together.
Okay, great.
We'll make sure that Ms. Green shares any other information that you need other than the documents you already have in front of you. And we'll put you on the board agenda for Tuesday night. Is there anything else currently in the area of finance or looking ahead to that meeting next month that you're hoping for from the administration that you would like to have us include in next month's meeting?
So the senior tax rebate program that you brought up is something that I've thought a lot about over the past few years. And I'm curious if there are any limitations or any, like how much flexibility do we have as a school district have on something like that? And I guess one of the things that I've been thinking about, like it's great to offer rebates, but a lot like the state program is very limiting. It's a lot of people get priced out of it simply because of what's considered to be their ability to pay taxes. But at the same time, if you can offer a more substantial rebate with the ability, like make it an investment into the senior, and then if at some point the family goes and sells that house, get back some portion of that rebate from those, because you're making it so that they can stay in their house, but the district is also leaving money on the table. And someday, somewhere, somebody's going to be selling that property and there's going to be a lot of profit coming off of it. And, so is it just a complete rebate where the district never gets that money back? Or is there a way to tie it in that at some point in that sale, that money could be deferred rather than a straight rebate?
The rebate programs that have been adopted by other districts within the county, they piggyback off of the state. But it's complete flexibility on how we want to have the program. There's nothing that says that we can't, that we have to mimic the state 100%. We could possibly loosen up some things. I think at the end of the day, we're going to have to get, I'll have the data and do the cost analysis, but it's going to come down to cost. And I hear what you're saying. I don't think anybody has ever implemented a program the way you're speaking of deferring. It's just been a true rebate where we don't get that money back. And that's the cost analysis and the analysis that we have to do. But that's why I want to introduce it a little bit early in the discussion so that we can make sure that we're building a program that everybody's comfortable with and it makes sense. And it also doesn't expose the district too greatly with leaving money on the table, but also still helping our senior population.
Okay, I think it's great. Great discussion to have.
Are there any other questions at this time from the board? Okay, all right, well then, this will be the end of our meeting. I don't believe we have any visitors in the meeting from the public, and so we won't need public comment. And so as a result, we can conclude the meeting. Thank you all very much.
Right,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Take care. Have a
Great
great
day.
day.
Bye.
Take care.
Okay, thank you.